something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Hello, hello. A big round of applause in the building right now, guys. Show me some love. Thank you. How are you guys? And welcome to TEDx Erasmus University, Rotterdam. My name is Eddie Caddy. I'm the host for today. I just wanted to show you guys that I'm not alone in this building. Yeah? There's a few of my friends that are here. I know most of you guys are at home. I know how you feel. I wanted to stay home as well, but I was, it was too tempting. I've not flown out to the UK for the past 8 months. I couldn't resist the opportunity to get on the plane again, and it kind of took me back when I was on that plane, you know. Just to let you guys know, my actual name is Eder Kodia Kasiala Kadi. That's my name. That's my actual name. I say Eddie Caddy because I grew up in the UK. It makes life a lot easier for people to pronounce my name. You know, everyone can relate. When you go to a different country, you may speak a different language, a different accent. And I grew up as a British Congolese. So I'm a country from a country called the Democratic Republic of Congo. Right? This is not my talk. We've got some amazing speakers today. But I just wanted us to become friends. So I want to let you know a little bit about me. So I grew up, I was born in a country called the Democratic Republic of Congo. Moved over to the UK at the age of 9. And over the years, I've had to teach people about my culture, about my language, what kind of food we eat, our language, everything. But I remember getting to a certain stage of my life, and I thought, I'm a proud British now. I've been in this country long enough. I can call myself British. And I started comparing. What are the good parts of being British, and what are the amazing parts of being Congolese? And I remember now, so yesterday when I was on this flight away, leaving the UK here to Rotterdam, it took me back to the first time I flew on British Airways. That was when I felt proud being British, right? I was on that plane for about 4 hours on our way to New York. After about, the 5th hour, the plane started to shake. I experienced what we call turbulence. I'm sure you guys know about turbulence. When that plane starts to shake, you think, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. What is happening to me right here? And after about half an hour, there was this reassuring voice that came on the loudspeaker. A very British voice. You heard a little announcement. Dun, dun, dun. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, you're experiencing a little turbulence. Nothing for you to worry about. This is British Airways. Thank you for flying with us. Do fasten your seatbelt. When I heard that British accent, I was so excited. I relaxed, and I traveled like that for 10 years. And then one day, I went home, and, we was on domestic flights with my mother, and we flew on Air Congo, right? And, that's not part of the joke. Just because I said Air Congo, don't laugh. That's not the joke, right? We was on Air Congo, and I was there with my mom, me and my British self. And of course, turbulence happened again. This is the first time it happened to my mother. My mom said, Eddie, what is that? I'm going to speak how my mom speaks, yeah? She has a very strong Congolese accent, and I love it. She said, Eddie, what is happening right now? What is happening? I said, Mom, this is turbulence. Don't worry about it. I've flown on British Airways many a times. Don't worry. After half an hour, the plane was still shaking. 2 hours. My mom said, Eddie, I'm getting worried. I said, Mom, don't worry. 5 hours, no pilots. My mom said, Eddie, I'm really worried. I said, Mom, relax. Even I started worrying. I looked around. Everybody's sweating. And then I realized, you see, Congolese people were very honest people. After about 10 hours flight is when all you heard was the plane slow down. Some people panicked, people had heart attacks, and all you heard was, Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. Woo, that was a close one. This is going to be a very long flight. Tighten your seatbelt. I don't know what's going to happen, but we will get there. In Jesus' name, amen. That's the honesty that I like from my people. From that day on, it was prayer before I got on the plane. But anyway, that's enough about me. We are now going to get on with this, our theme for today, strength through unity. Now, what happens when you combine chocolate, coffee, and a little bit of artificial intelligence? Well, you're about to find out, right? So I'm going to introduce our very first speaker. Every speaker that's coming on today has been carefully selected for your benefit, guys. So I'm really excited for you. So let me invite my first friend here who is coming to speak to us about something very exciting. And we call it leadership. But I want to read a quote from him. How can we agree on our leadership if we first don't agree on what leadership is? This is the academic director of Erasmus Center of Leadership. Please put your hands together. Welcome him like a rock star, guys. Let's make some noise for Hannes Leroy.
For the past 15 years now, I have done research on how we can help people become better leaders. And during that time, I've made the most curious of observations that I would like to share with you. Imagine this. I walk into a room, and this room, it's filled with executives. And I ask these executives a very simple question. Who here is in a position of leadership? All hands go up. My next question, however, is only keep your hands up if you feel that you've been sufficiently trained to be a leader. Now, I've tried, and I've tested this around the world, and I get the same response. Almost all of those hands go down. Isn't that curious? These people are in a position of leadership, but they don't feel that they've been trained for it. Now imagine the following. Now I walk into a hospital. There's a room full of surgeons there, and I ask the same questions. Who here is a surgeon? All hands go up. Who here was trained to be a surgeon? All hands would stay up. And I could replace surgeon with civil engineer, or psychotherapist, or for that matter, any other profession, and I would get the same response. These people were trained for the job. And it only makes sense, right? It only makes sense because we wouldn't put a scalpel into some person's hand, ask them to operate on us without guarantee that this person actually knows what they're doing. However, we are willing to, for example, elect politicians into a role of leadership without any guarantee that they were trained for the job. My name is Hannes Leroy, and as you can probably tell, I am very passionate about making sure that the leaders of our world get the development that they deserve. But to really understand why that is my passion, I have to go back in time a little bit to my own very first leadership position. Now, this takes me back to my own high school experience. And against my own expectations, I was voted to be class president. Now, I can tell you at that young age, that felt pretty good, right? I mean, to have your peers tell you, we want you to be our leader. And I remember that with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy, I worked day in, I worked throughout the night, and I tried to be the best leader possible, and I failed. And in fact, I failed quite miserably. Don't get me wrong, it's not like these colleague students chased me down the schools with pitchforks or torches or anything. However, I did make some basic mistakes that are not just reserved for high school presidents, but that I see country presidents, CEOs of companies also make. Let me just give you one example, right? I think one of the reasons why my peers voted me to be a leader is I have a lot of drive, I have a lot of energy, and I'm a person who gets things done. I'm a high achiever. And so it made sense for me to be the leader, right? Except leadership is not about excelling and achieving yourself. It's about helping others, making sure that others excel. But that was a lesson that I didn't know and I didn't understand at the time. I've made many other mistakes since then, and I could spend a lot more time focusing on all the mistakes I've made. However, instead, let me tell you on what happened next, because I was faced with this problem. On the one hand, people clearly saw me as a leader, but I clearly lacked the skills and the competencies needed to be a leader. So after my high school, I decided to study psychology, because I was thinking, if I want to be a better leader, I need to make sure that I understand what makes people tick, what drives them, what motivates them. And I didn't stop there. After that, I did a PhD in leadership, and I went on to be a professor in leadership for 15 years. During that time, I've learned a lot of what it takes to be a better leader. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but there's one clear truth that stands out that I would like to share with you. Leadership is not something that people are born with, nor is it some sort of magic or an art form. Leadership, plain and simple, it is something that you can learn how to get better at. Leadership is something you can learn how to master. And we've got about 100 years of leadership research that gives you a clear indication of what you should and what you shouldn't do. And I wish I could go back in time and tell the younger version of myself some of these tips and tricks to make sure that I didn't make those mistakes. Of course I can't. I can't go back in time. But what I can do is dedicate myself to make sure that the leaders of our world, and I'm talking all the way from class presidents to presidents of countries, that these people get the development that I know that they need, but that I also believe that they deserve. So where are we? Where are we on this quest to making sure that the leaders of our world get better training? There's good news and then there's bad news. Let me start with the good news. In my years as a professor in leadership, I have seen so many leaders who are trying to get this right. Similar to me as a class president, right? They are putting all their energy into this and they really want to get better. That's the good news. The bad news, however, is the leadership development industry. And the leadership development industry is sometimes referred to as a Wild West. I don't know if you remember the Wild West, that metaphor, right? Shoot first, ask questions later. And there's one particular metaphor of the Wild West that applies to leadership development. Remember this idea of snake oil? In the Wild West, you had people who would go from town to sell snake oil, pretending that, hey, the snake oil will cure all diseases. Of course, we know now, and medical science has caught up, snake oil doesn't cure all diseases. In fact, it might be pretty harmful to you. Unfortunately, when it comes to leadership development, there is still a lot of snake oil out there. Or at the very least, there are a lot of programs out there that haven't been proven to work. And this is a billion-dollar industry, so that's a lot of money potentially wasted in making sure we get better leaders. And it doesn't have to be like this. Because as I said, we've got 100 years of research to indicate how we should be developing leaders. So what am I proposing here? What is my solution to this? I'm suggesting a very simple idea, which is, why don't we professionalize leadership? In the same way that we have the profession of a surgeon, a psychotherapist, a civil engineer, why don't we professionalize leadership such that not just any person can stand up and say, I'm a leader. No, only those people who have been certified in terms of leadership can be a leader. So imagine with me what that might look like. Imagine a different world for a moment where all of a sudden people now have L, D, R in front of their name. And LDR, leader, the same as DR, doctor, or ING, engineer, LDR in front of your name, that would mean something. It would mean that you have a basic set of skills and competencies that qualify you to be a leader. And there's more. Because it doesn't just have to be reserved to skills and competencies. LDR in front of your name, it could also mean a set of values. Think of doctors, right? They take an oath of Hippocrates. And in that oath, they swear that they will do no harm. Imagine for a moment what would happen if we have the leaders of our world take such a leadership oath, right? To make sure that they do no harm, but potentially more than that. I will end my talk now with giving you an example of what such a leadership oath could look like. And you have to imagine, at the end of a certification process, at the end of good training and development, these leaders would stand up tall and utter the following words. I choose to be a leader. And therefore, I realize that whatever I say, whatever I do, it has a meaningful impact on the lives of other human beings. And I dedicate myself to making sure that I fully understand exactly how I impact others. And in understanding my impact on others, I will dedicate myself to be a force for positive change. Thank you.
One more time, please, guys. One more time for Hannes. Thank you, Hannes. I leave that conversation with the letters LDR. Maybe, that's what I'm going to strive to be next. He mentioned also ENG engineering, DR doctor. It takes me back to, the leader of my family, my father, who once sat us down, myself and my 3 other siblings, and asked us a very simple question. Of course, there's a long age gap between myself and my siblings. The one closest to me, there's a 3-year age gap. And I remember my dad asking her first, what do you want to do when you grow up? Charlene, her name is. And my sister said, Dad, I want to be a lawyer. And my dad's face was shining with pride. And asked the other 2 little ones, they were young. One said, I want to be a footballer. And my dad said, okay, you'll grow out of it. And then asked the other one, I want to be a princess. My sister said, that's all right. So, of course, I'm the firstborn. So ultimately, I'm the next leader of the family. And I'll never forget, my father asked me this. I was sure of my career. He said, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be an entertainer, Dad. He said, okay, entertain me. Which part of entertainment? I said, Dad, I want to be a comedian. My father started laughing. I said, wow, Dad, you like it? He said, yeah. You want to be a comedian? That's good. That's your first joke, okay? And I thought, wow. And I remember, my father did not speak to me. He made a deal with me, and he said, you go to finish school first, because he realized if this child wants to be a comedian, he has no brain. So he will never finish school. So he said, if you finish school, I will let you become a comedian. So what did I do? I finished school. Give me a round of applause, guys. I did. I finished school. Yes, I did. And I remember coming to my dad. I said, Dad, now I'm ready to pursue my career. My father was so stubborn, he did not come to any of my shows, guys, for about 2 years. My mother realized how talented I was, that one day dragged my dad. I don't know how she did it. Women are very powerful. It's either there's something she did or did not do, Either way, my dad turned up. And I remember my dad watching me perform. He did not laugh one bit. All he kept doing was nodding. He kept nodding the whole show. At the end, I came to him, and I know I had a great show. I said, Dad, you didn't laugh. He said, you're so talented. That was exciting. Oh, I laughed. I said, you did not. You were just nodding. And as grateful as this African man is, he looked at me and said, son, I was nodding because I was too busy counting the money. 20 pounds, 20 pounds, 20 pounds, times 200. Ooh, this is a good career. And from that day on, my dad has been the leader in my bank account. Okay, anyways, I'm going to move on to the next speaker. Now, this is really exciting. This is an assistant professor from Erasmus University. And he is a quote. I love these quotes. Lessons learned but mistakes repeated. How Ebola can teach us to improve our COVID response. Please, guys, welcome her here, like the rock star that she is, the one and only, Bilgil Aslan.
In 2014, the world was shaken by the news that the Ebola outbreak in West Africa had risen to a global threat. The virus was spreading uncontrollably, the fatality rate was very high, and the doctors had no treatment options. Today, humanity is facing multiple grand challenges like Ebola. Some of these spike as sporadic events, like floods, hurricanes, and wildfires, while others build up over time to crisis levels, like antimicrobial resistance, income disparity, and global warming. It feels like our own success as a species has created its own problems, and we entered a new era of increasingly difficult and highly complex grand challenges. So the question is, how do we tackle such issues? Well, our current MO is to enjoy the comfort and security of our daily lives and then start throwing resources at the problems only when they arise. Take the Ebola epidemic, for instance. The first infections were announced around March 2014. And for a while, we hoped that the existing infrastructure would just solve the problem. But soon, the virus penetrated into the densely populated capital cities of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, and then WHO sounded the alarm. This time, dozens of countries were willing to chip in. They dedicated hundreds of millions of dollars to outbreak response. They even deployed their military for field operations. WHO coordinated the efforts of 115 NGOs for contact tracing, for treating patients, but there was a problem. The virus continued to kill people. So we were in a dire need of a vaccine. All this money, all this effort, but we still needed time to develop such a high-tech solution, time that we didn't have at that time. So it took 5 years to develop the first vaccine, but in the meantime, we have lost 11,000 lives, 40% of the infected. So throwing money at the problem did not save these people. This is the first lesson to be learned from the Ebola epidemic, that we must be prepared when these disasters strike. I mean, I keep myself asking, if we had learned that lesson by then, could we have been able to save hundreds of thousands of people today? I'm afraid the answer is yes. So we can't afford to wait for crisis to happen, but we must be prepared. But then, how can we be prepared for these disasters that are so unpredictable? Indeed, for most of us, Ebola was totally unexpected. I mean, we had heard about it a couple of years ago, here and there, but it never occurred to us that it could lead to such a global problem, such a global threat. But in fact, since the first one in 1976, there had been 18 different Ebola outbreaks. 18 different warning signs of a highly deadly virus. And when the biggest outbreak hit us in 2014, we were painfully unprepared. Today, we are going through the COVID-19 pandemic. Was it possible to predict it? There had been 2 coronavirus-related epidemics before. The first one in 2003, the MERS epidemic, which killed 800 people and infected 8,000. The second one in 2012, it killed 1/3 of the 2,500 people that it infected. In 2012, the Robert Koch Institute of Germany drafted a public protection report which detailed a scenario of a possible coronavirus pandemic. And that scenario came astonishingly close to what we are going through today in terms of the number of cases, the number of deaths, and even the timing of the waves. And the report also estimated that the impact on people and economy would be at a level E. And guess what? Level E was the highest degree on their scale. So we knew that a pandemic was totally possible. So the problem is not that we are blind to these future events. The problem is that we fail to act on this information. We tend to downplay it. But so how can we care to prepare? If we know these disasters are likely, how can we care to prepare for these events? Well, for some of these disasters, we are already prepared. Imagine yourself entering your car. When we do enter our cars, we instinctively reach for our seatbelts just to save ourselves from that highly tragic and potentially disastrous traffic accident. Municipalities, they keep ready a firefighting unit 24/7 just in case a fire incident happens. But for some other potential disasters, we are unprepared. We don't yet have solutions. But at the societal level, we seem to continue ourselves relatively unbothered. Perhaps we don't really grasp the devastating consequences because we attach such a low probability to that. So we need to change this. We need to understand that disasters happen, and when they do, they have dramatic consequences. Luckily for us, there are some people among us that have a different perspective, that prepare for disasters. In 1999, three scientists at Public Health Agency of Canada, Stephen Jones, Heinz Feldman, and Ute Stroer, started their research on developing the first Ebola vaccine. At that time, it was already agreed upon that Ebola was a highly deadly virus, it was very dangerous, and it was even a bioterrorism threat. But the funding agencies were not willing to dedicate their limited resources to this issue. For them, other health issues were more pressing. So it took 4 years for these three scientists to raise half of the money that they needed. And when they did, they have been able to produce and set aside a batch of vaccines just in case they would be needed. Think about it. One could easily go and say in December 2012 that this was a total waste of resources, but in 3 months, in just 3 months, that batch of vaccines was perhaps one of the most valuable things in the world. And the West African Ebola outbreak wasn't even the first case in which this vaccine candidate was even used. It was even in a more unlikely event. On March 12, 2009, a virologist in a Hamburg research institute pricked his finger after a mouse experiment, and the syringe contained the Ebola virus. This happened in a biosecurity level 4 laboratory. Biosecurity level 4 is the highest security level that you can get, yet on that day, the syringe found its way penetrating through 3 layers of gloves of that scientist. And that scientist, who is still alive, by the way, was the first person to receive the vaccine candidate. So we have a laboratory accident, an Ebola epidemic, a coronavirus pandemic. These disasters happen no matter how unlikely they are. And in fact, for instance, the coronavirus pandemic was estimated to happen once in 1,000 years, and here we are living that 1 year in 1,000. So these disasters happen, and when they do, they have dramatic consequences. So we need the mindset of people like Jones, Feldman, and Stroer, who do not shrug off a potential disaster, who do not seek comfort in a false sense of security, but choose to be part of a solution. They choose to be proactive. They choose to be prepared. Granted, preparedness is difficult, especially for the kind of issues that we are talking about. These issues require enormous amount of resources for a potential solution, and no one person, no single company, and no sole institution has all the resources necessary for coming up with potential solutions. So what we need to do is simple. We need to just combine these different people, different institutions, and different companies such that they can partner up to combine their different resources, expertise, and capabilities to find effective solutions for the problems that we are facing. This is how the Ebola vaccine was eventually developed. Hundreds of governments dedicated hundreds of millions to the development of the vaccine. 2 companies, New Link Genetics and Merck, combined their biotechnology and vaccine development expertise. Logistical capabilities were needed for running clinical trials, so Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, CDC, and BARDA partnered up to conduct phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. Gavi Alliance ordered 300 doses of the vaccine, and distribution and vaccination was undertaken by WHO and Médecins Sans Frontières. So the Ebola vaccine is the product of not one, but multiple partnerships. I conduct research on partnerships in the context of grant challenges, and the good news from my findings is that whenever an outbreak happens, we see a dramatic increase in the number of partnerships, and these partnerships indeed accelerate drug development. The bad news is that, meanwhile, other research comes to a halt, and it still takes too much time, the time that we don't have to come up with a drug. So what we need to do is to do following. We already have the existing capabilities for partnership. What we need to do is to just combine it with a mindset of preparedness. Preparedness and partnerships, these are the two things that we need to keep in mind. Preparedness for potentially disastrous events, no matter how unlikely they are, and no matter how much resistance we get. And partnerships, partnerships for the solution that no one can invest alone. Preparedness and partnerships. So you can start small. You can start with having that earthquake kit ready at home, just in case a tremor strikes. You can advise your workplace to keep an automatic defibrillator on hand, just in case a colleague gets a heart attack. You can join your institution's risk management team and look out for potential disasters and always advocate for partnerships and preparedness. Invest in solutions together and never get caught by surprise when disaster strikes. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow, wow. Merci beaucoup, Birgil. That was wonderful. I take the message of being prepared, of course. And I would like to prepare you guys at home. We do have some amazing entertainment coming up, but prior to that, we do have amazing 2 more speakers on this part of the event. Now, I would like to not waste any more time because I really do believe you guys need to hear this next speaker, just like the rest of the speakers. This one right here, we are going into artificial intelligence. Ooh, we're in the future, all right? Okay, so here's a quote. Not our robot overlords yet, but our partners, the real value of AI. Now, this is the Global Head of Data Science, Friesland Campina. Please welcome Juan Carlos Romero in the building.
So artificial intelligence. We hear about it pretty much everywhere, right? And while mainstream media is still pretty much talking about it all the time, I don't think most of us yet understand the true potential of it. AI still feels some sort of a mystery technology. Now, some of those messages in the media are basically telling us that it could take over all of our jobs, replacing humans completely from the workforce. Others are basically telling us the opposite, that it's some sort of nirvana or silver bullet for solving some of the world's biggest problems. So kind of polarizing, right? They're basically telling you to either love or hate AI. Now, unsurprisingly, spoilers alert, I have to tell you first that neither of those messages is entirely true. And if you ask me, personally, I actually don't either love nor hate AI, because AI is a tool. So let's start with that. It's not a sentient entity that can express love nor hate to. So let's leave that part of the narrative for science fiction. What I can do tell you is that over the past 10 years, I've been involved in the application of AI across multiple industries. So from financial services to consumer products. And think from a function point of view, sales and marketing and logistics and manufacturing. And over those years, I saw lots of really good success stories, stuff that really made me proud about this technology. And at the same time, lots of failures. And today, I would like to share with you the one common denominator across all of those success stories. And that is that when applied in the right way, AI will give us all superpowers. But why? Let's start approaching that with that angle. So why will AI give us superpowers? And actually, let me take a little bit of a background on this one with a question back. So what resource is truly the most valuable to us compared to time at the end of the line? So we never have enough of that one, and we always want more of it, right? And even from a business point of view, it is the one resource that we're constantly trying to maximize. So people's time to get things done. That is the one thing we're constantly trying to maximize with our workforce. So if you need to increase your sales, some of the things that might come to mind are maybe you should increase your salespeople. And if you need to reduce downtime in your factories, maybe you should have more maintenance operators, right? But doing that is not always possible. Now going back to AI. And specifically in my work at Friesland Campina, we're seeing this shine in the maintenance space. You see, some of our factories need to run 24/7, and they have some pretty complex critical equipment to enable that to happen. And what you're seeing on that screen now is one of those machines, just one. It's a sterilizer, and its name is Flex 4. We have 15 of those machines sitting in just one of our factories in Alter, Belgium. Now, What you're seeing on the other side is basically the X-ray, if you wish, of the Flex 4 machine. And all of those boxes, all those are basically critical subcomponents of the machines. So that's where we usually put sensors to measure stuff like pressure, humidity, things that tells us something about the state, the health, if you wish, and the performance of the machine. We have just in that one machine over 90 sensors streaming data on real time constantly. So I hope you're not surprised when I tell you that from time to time, just because it's so much information, this machine does break. And when that happens, and if you're running a factory that needs to run 24/7, that is a big thing because we need to firefight immediately and solve that problem to go back to this 24/7 operation mode. So that's a lot of stress for a lot of people to make sure that we can go back. They really needed some help on this one. So what could we do to help them? One thing could be we should add more people, right? Well, been there, done that, actually. That didn't pull it off fully, at least. So we had to try something else, and we tried AI. And the reason that we tried it was that if you look at the challenge, it's basically a lot of information. So what AI is doing is basically looking at all of those sensors, all of those 90 sensors streaming data. And it's looking at all of those interactions in the sensors on real time. And by doing so, it's enabling our maintenance operators with the power of prediction. So basically, it's enabled them to see things before they happen. And the coolest thing of this one is that we actually were able to catch some of these events around 3 months before they would actually happen. So that basically gave our maintenance operators more than enough time to actually focus on preventing and organizing a maintenance routine and actually preventing the breakdown altogether. So they're still there, and they are really using their precious time to do that thing they do really well, which is organizing those maintenance routines. So I hope with this one you're getting a better view about what AI is really about, right? It's not a mystery technology, actually. It's just a technology that enables machines to succeed at highly complex cognitive tasks that we people try to, let's say, struggle to do on our own or in isolation. So like that prediction challenge on all of those sensors in just one machine. Remember, we have 15, and we have all of other tons of machines in that factory, right? So we need to use the time in a better way. Now, if you want to understand how this works, machine learning is really at the core of it. And there are many ways to explain machine learning, one more complicated than the other. Let me pick one that is one of my favorite for explaining this. And this one comes from Google's chief decision science, Cassie Kosyrkov. And the way she explains this is actually forgetting about the technology for a while and just thinking, how do we actually talk with a person to ask the person to do something for us? Because talking with machine is actually not that different. So when you asking a person to do something for you, you have 2 ways of doing that. The first one is direct instructions. So usually you would say a lot of verbal instructions, or you write a very long manual basically detailing every single possible scenario of what the person needs to do for you. So how many of you got one of those beautiful 200-page manual when you started a new job? I know I didn't, by the way. Luckily, there was the second way of communication, which is, how about you just sit with me while I do the job, and you just see me doing it? And by the way, that doesn't mean I'm not going to give you the manual, but it will be a link manual, and then you also need to see me do the job. And while you see me doing the job, stuff is going to happen in your brain, and you're going to basically start getting it, and you're going to build these constructs in your head. Now, imagine for a while that you would be completely blocked from the second way of communication, that you can only have these very detailed, long instructions as a way of communication. That's a big chunk of communications options blocked away, right? And now let's put the technology in the metaphor. And just think about AI and machine learning as unblocking that second way of communication. So this time, we can tell machines how to do smart things for us in a more effective way. And this is really big, right? Just think about the enormous amount of tasks that we now can automate because of this new way of writing programs, of talking with machines and telling them to do stuff for us. Now, next to that, I think AI is really going to be a big revolution for us because it's going to really change the way we connect with machines. In a way, it's not about replacing people, right? If you see the example I just told you, it's about enhancing human capability rather than replacing it. And this whole mindset is really on the opposite to the traditional one of we should replace entire systems and processes and just put a machine and remove all the human component altogether. And this is something that people are starting to notice slowly but steadily. And even Elon Musk has come to see this one. And you can read it on the screen. That's from a tweet just from 2018, by the way, so not that old, where he basically acknowledges that excessive automation at Tesla, even that level of manufacturing, was a mistake. And actually, I like even more the second part of the tweet where he acknowledges that humans are underrated. And that is absolutely true. So we are really good at a lot of things, a lot of tasks, and that's something that should make us happy. Now, at the same time, what makes me even more happy is that we can enhance that human capability even more if you have AI as a superpower. Now, to be fair, we've talked about superpowers already for quite a while. It's also important to talk about how to use them in the right way, because with great powers come great responsibilities as well, right? And that's important to acknowledge that is something that we need to own. So we need to govern those powers and not let the power govern us. You cannot outsource that governance responsibility. And I would like to start talking on this one with one example where we actually did this in a very, very wrong way. And this is even more fresh. So this is just from a case that it was published in the US back in 2019. And it's about using AI for criminal conviction cases. So let me start explaining here why would be the logic in favor of doing this. So what could go well if we do this? So theoretically, if you are able to predict criminal rates, you could basically do things like allocating your resources more effectively to rehabilitation, for example, or prison sentences, right? Technically, you could also say, hey, I have a judge who is running this process next to a lot of other people, of course, but he has a bias, right? He can have human bias, and let's put AI next to this person because AI is going to be fully focused on fact-based, data-driven decisions. So we're going to reduce the human bias by putting a machine next to it, which is fully not biased. And the way we would do this is that we would embed this algorithm next to the process, and the algorithm would influence the process, right? So at the end of the line, you could say that a low score of these algorithms could influence a kinder fate, and a high score, well, precisely the opposite. And what could go wrong, right? You are just giving a nice superpower, it's going to enhance the judge. Well, some things could go wrong, actually. And the first one is that you need to understand how this actually works. So usually, you need to train these AI systems with historical data. And in this case, you would do it with historical past crime data, right? And if you do it with biased data, so data that is biased on a certain demographic group, for example, because again, we can have biases in ourselves, so we influence the data. And you put that into an algorithm, what is going to happen is that the algorithm is going to catch that data and it's going to amplify it, right? Because it's going to give recommendations based on that data. Then you're going to feed the algorithm on that data that is generated, and it's just going to amplify that bias on potentially, let's say, a certain demographic group. And that can be having huge effects when you deploy this at scale. The other thing that we should know is that more often than not, these systems are what we would call closed proprietary systems, which means, long story short, that let's say the end user, the judge, is not able to interrogate the system. So let's say the judge would get a high score. Okay, this person is very likely to be guilty. Why? So why is this the case? He cannot see it because it's an IP, because it's closed, because he's just not able to see it. So he would need to believe it on face value. That is really dangerous. And the question is, we can do this. We've done it on 2019 already. Should we do this? Should we use these powers in this way? And I would dare to say no. And I'm also going to be the one saying that there's going to be plenty of shades of gray along this AI journey. So not all things are going to be as straightforward as this one. But I hope we do recognize that there will be cases where we need to act pretty much swift and fast and put some boundaries in the way we use this technology, if we want to use it at all, actually. Now, using AI is such a big responsibility also, or let's say beyond risk management, like the case I just told you, because it can really create a lot of good things for us. It can really save human lives. And that's the other extreme of the realm of possibilities. And for this one, I would like to take you to 2015, just to give you a sense of magnitude. So back in 2015, 10% of all deaths in the US were linked to misdiagnosis of clinical diseases, which is massive, right? 10% is huge. In a way, at the same time, though, I would say it's quite understandable. So who runs the diagnosis of any disease? A person, a doctor. Many of these doctors can be overwhelmed sometimes with many cases. And if you put too much load on any person, it's going to get tired. If I work nonstop for 3 days, I'm going to make mistakes. It's only natural. Now, if fatigue is a challenge on this specific task, let's say, you could also acknowledge that AI is immune to that one, right? AI is not going to get tired. It's not going to have fatigue. It doesn't need to sleep at least 8 hours, like I like to sleep. So that's an advantage. And looking at that advantage, there has been already quite a couple of studies that prove that AI is really good at diagnosing certain diseases, like, for example, breast cancers. So if you have some data like images from X-rays, for example, yeah, AI is really good at pinpointing those anomalies that basically are then pinpointed to a disease, and it can do that even better than a human doctor in some studies when you put them one versus the other. And it is with this context in mind that there was a nice joint venture that I actually really enjoyed reading between the University of California and General Electric, which was basically exploring how we can do this better, right? So how can we use AI to optimize this process? So basically, how can we optimize the time of the doctor and how we can make better clinical decisions? But before I tell you how this goes, let's go back to one step, right? I also told you that AI is doing it better than a doctor, right? So why would we keep the doctor at all in the equation on this one? Well, there is a reason for this. The reason is that even if you have an AI system embedded on an X-ray machine, which is what they did, by the way, so they had the X-ray machine with the embedded anomaly detection, if you wish, system there pinpointing this. That's good. It was very accurate. But even if you have that, which is going to be, again, very accurate, the doctor still brings to the table something, and that is the ability to put that pre-diagnosis, that's how I like to call it, into context and confirm that that one anomaly is indeed a tumor or maybe not something else that should be treated differently. But you are still optimizing the process, right? Because the way this would work is that the doctor doesn't need to see anymore so many X-rays, and he's going to really focus his attention in those X-rays that are really important and in this really specific part that is highlighted by the algorithm. So you're going to optimize his time a lot better, and you're going to optimize the overall accuracy of the entire process. So it's really a win-win, right? And it's really about enhancing capability. So in the end, we're going to have an X-ray, and you're going to have a doctor, and we're going to have a person. I'm not going to even talk about the importance of the human connection in this picture, but let's say you should always see the enhancement of the capability of the doctor on this one. Now, to finalize, I would like to actually go back to where we started. And that is the one thing that I really don't want you to forget from this talk. And that is that AI will give us superpowers. It's already doing it, huh? But it's really up to us to use them in the right way. And that means that we need to own certain responsibilities on this thing. It's not about giving it all to AI. And we need to own things like making sure that we train AI system with unbiased, untainted data. We need to also own how we use this technology, how we use it to enhance human capability rather than replacing it. And we also need to own the use cases, so basically using it for the betterment of society. No AI is going to help you with any of those three, next to a lot of other responsibilities, by the way. And for me, this is such a huge, on one way, responsibility and also potential, right? Because AI can be used in such a huge amount of possibilities. It can help us, or not help us, to put innocent people in prison, or it can help us to save human lives. And that choice is ours. So let's make sure we own it really well. And that means that whether you are an entrepreneur, business leader, researcher, student, government official, I would say almost doesn't matter. In the upcoming years, each one of us will manage or interact with AI systems, and it will give us superpowers. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. And I'm sure that's helped in calming some people down who are suffering from anxiety when it comes to artificial intelligence. Hopefully. I don't want to waste any time. I do want to tell you guys right now, I'm excited about the next conversation because I love chocolate. I had chocolate this morning. I had chocolate last night. I stole chocolate from my daughter's packed lunch, but that was a very healthy decision from a very responsible father, so don't blame me. But what we would like to know is that there's some behind the scenes going on when it comes to the cocoa industry. What sustainability initiatives could work in the cocoa industry. Now, this lady coming on right now, her title is she's supposed to, her role is actually to inspire you to act. So she is the Inspire to Actress for Tony's Chocolonely. Please put your hands together for the one and only Yoka Hutz.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. So tonight I'd like to talk to you about chocolate. Do you love it? I mean, I love it, but I'm Belgian, so I'm practically nationally obligated to love it. And I love it in all forms, but my favorite form is a bite-sized chunk of room temperature dark chocolate. When I was a kid, my mom always taught me that chocolate was a luxury. It was something to cherish. It was something to savor. We were only ever allowed a tiny bite, and then we had to keep it in our mouths until it melted away and the last bit of chocolate flavor was gone from our mouths. We even had to lick our teeth, and then maybe we were allowed another bite. Now that I have children of my own, my mom taught my kids to eat chocolate in exactly the same way. And when Oma comes to visit, some of their favorite times are 3 p.m. on the couch with coffee for the adults and small bites of chocolate to savor. It makes me really happy. It's bliss. But the other side of chocolate is not so bliss. Chocolate comes from the fruit, is the seed of a fruit of a tropical tree that grows around the equator. Cocoa trees grow mostly in West Africa. That's also where the oldest cocoa plantations are. The bulk of our cocoa comes from Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, and it's mostly grown by smallholders, about 2.5 million of them. The sustainability issues in cocoa are multidimensional and complex. Farmers are getting older. They tend to be on small farms with large families. They work on the farm with very little to no external paid labor, and they don't have very big harvests. They also have dropping productivity rates, and they have murky land tenure rights. And that combination often leads to encroachment into protected lands and forests. Poverty also leads to children needing to contribute to the family's income by working on the farm, but often by engaging in illegal child labor. The latest numbers we have are that 2.1 children are engaged in illegal child labor on West African cocoa farms. Illegal child labor means things like carrying really heavy loads or using dangerous materials like machetes or using chemicals, and they're missing school. Smallholder farmers also have very little say in the price they're paid for cocoa, actually pretty much none, because the government sets the price. And the farmers are very dependent on local cocoa bean collectors on the timing of when they pass by the farm to collect the seeds. And the price that they get paid for cocoa is way too low to earn a living income. If we as a society want rural, economically stable societies that are linked up to the global food chain, then that is something that needs to change. Because earning a living income is a basic human right that we've agreed upon with the United Nations as one of our global development goals, and cocoa farmers are far from it. There are lots of different ways to measure poverty, but a very simplistic metric is the one set by the World Bank 5 years ago, which said that the international poverty line is at about $1.90 a day, and most West African cocoa farmers are under $1 a day. So this is deep, deep poverty. And why is it like this? Well, the cocoa supply chain is very long and very fractured. In other tropical food commodities that I've worked in, like coffee or tea or bananas, the product pretty much comes to you as is. I mean, it might be a little roasted or it might be a little ground, but essentially a banana is a banana. But a cocoa bean goes through this magical transformation to becoming the chocolate that is in your bar and to the one that we savor on the couch. So if you've never seen an almost ready to be harvested cocoa tree, it might make you laugh a little bit because it has these rugby ball shaped small ridged pods that grow directly on the trunk of the tree. To me, it looks like a child's drawing. when the cocoa pods become ripe, they become these beautiful ruby reds and sunshine yellows. When the farmer cracks the pod open, inside are these white, sweet, slimy, fragrant garlic cloves. It doesn't look anything like chocolate. It's not garlic cloves, it's cocoa beans. So those cocoa beans are fermented directly on the farm, often on a banana leaf spread on the farm floor. After a few days, the fermentation is done, and then they're hand-turned and sun-dried. And it's those sun-dried beans that are available for pickup by that local collector. It goes through multiple steps, and then it ends up at the local buying company where the beans are made available for export. Once the beans arrive here in Europe, they're inspected again for quality, and then they are both crushed and roasted until you get these cocoa nibs, these very large grains, very, very dark brown, which gives chocolate that signature color. Those cocoa nibs are ground into a paste that's called cocoa mass or cocoa liquor, which is a key ingredient in making chocolate. So some of that cocoa mass is set aside, but some is sent yet again to another processing facility where it's pressed very hard. And then you get two things. You get a cake that can be ground into a powder, and that cocoa powder, as you know, can be used for cakes or biscuits or chocolate milk. And the other part that you get is cocoa butter. And cocoa butter gives chocolate that signature creaminess, that melt in your mouth feeling that's so important to my mom's savor the chocolate moment. And you need that to make chocolate as well because it also melts at room temperature. So to make liquid chocolate, you're taking some of that cocoa mass, you're taking sugar, you're taking milk powder if you're making milk chocolate, and then you're taking some of that cocoa butter and you're going to mix it. And the cocoa butter gets added at several different processes along the shop floor, but it's going to mix and mix, it's called conching, until the particles become so small that your tongue actually cannot taste the difference between the particles anymore. And that delicious mix gets tempered, and then that liquid chocolate gets shipped off to another co-manufacturer who's the one who pours it into a mold, like the chocolate bar that we all know and love. And when it dries, you get that chocolate sheen and that snap you get when you take off a piece of chocolate. So you can see that with all this mixing and grinding and separating and reconstituting and pressing, that the manufacturing process is very fractured. And this fractured process leads to anonymity, when what we really need in the cocoa value chain is connection, is empathy, is responsibility. There are, of course, chocolate brands that do the entire bean-to-bar process themselves, and that's great. But if we want to change the cocoa industry, and by that I mean the entire cocoa industry, then we have to look at how chocolate flows through 99% of the chocolate you've ever consumed in your life and probably will continue to consume. Because only at scale will we achieve significant impact on the ground. Because right now we're doing much too little, much too late, and much too slowly. So how do we achieve that connection? Well, connection comes through traceability. Chocolate brands have an obligation to know exactly who the cocoa farmers are who are providing the cocoa beans for their chocolate. Only then can they understand their circumstances and actually take responsibility, pull responsibility towards them for the human rights and the planet rights that we're all working towards. Empathy is, of course, the ability to put yourself in another person's experience within their frame of reference. And I wanted to mention that because farmers don't want to ruin the last standing forests in their countries. And farmers don't relish watching their children carry heavy loads and missing school. There is a systemic inequality that exists in the cocoa supply chain that is causing this exploitation. So what we see happening in the global south is really just a symptom of how we approach things here in the global north. So if we don't connect, if we don't empathize, then we cannot take responsibility for those things, and then we are the deforesters, we are the exploiters, and we are the child traffickers. So who is the person, who's the actor in the supply chain with the clout and the responsibility to do something? Is it the farmer, or is it you, the chocolate consumer? You definitely both have a role to play. But the cocoa value chain is shaped like an hourglass, but on its side. You have millions of chocolate farmers on this side, cocoa farmers on this side, smallholders, and billions of chocolate consumers on this side. But in the middle are just a few chocolate giants. 70% of the liquid chocolate market is dominated by just 3 chocolate manufacturers and 8 cocoa processors and traders. So those few actors have all the power in the supply chain. And as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. And what do I mean by responsibility? I mean that we have a rapid, goal-oriented, and collective approach to changing this system. Because here's another interesting thing that's happening. Fairtrade did a study recently, last year, on what are all the different cocoa sustainability initiatives that are active in West Africa right now. And they found that in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire alone, there were 54 separate programs running to work in cocoa sustainability. A lot of them were focused on the same groups of farmers, but with little to no cohesive approach between the programs, meaning that not a single farmer was being pulled out of poverty. And many of the farmers are being left out in the cold and not being engaged with at all. So what we're seeing is that chocolate giants are competing with each other on protecting their sustainability initiatives. And they're doing it for just a very small fraction of their supply chain. So what do I think about this? What can we do about this? What if I told you that the best unique selling point is not being unique at all? What if I told you that collaboration is the best new form of competition? Because in this sharing economy, isn't collaborating on sustainability much more purposeful than competing? I mean, we already know what the tools are that we need to connect to farmers and to engage, but we need to do it together so that we can make positive impact much, much faster. I'll give you an example. Picture a farmer who's been asked to have a map made of his farm. You can make GPS polygon maps by walking the perimeter of the farm and taking coordinate points. And these maps are very important to both the farms and the farmer groups, as well as the buyers. So for the farmers and the farmer groups, they can make an assessment of current yields and potential yields. They can make a collective purchase of, for example, fertilizers or seedlings they might need for the year. And buyers can analyze the maps for deforestation or deforestation risk, and then they can take responsibility to mitigate that risk. So the maps are important and a tool that we know. So picture the farmer welcoming a person with a company logo onto his farm to come and walk the perimeter of the farm. And then picture a week later, a different company, a different person with a different company logo coming to do the exact same work again. And remember, many cocoa farmers in West Africa have not been mapped at all. And then picture something that is even more frustrating than that wasted time and that duplicated effort. Picture that farmer or the farmer group not even owning that data at all, not seeing it, not using it, not leveraging it, or not owning it. Another connection, another collaboration that chocolate brands need to do is on living income. Chocolate brands can and should collaborate on paying a price to farmers that enables a living income. It's not fair for one chocolate brand to carry that financial burden for all other chocolate brands. And it is also not a good idea for a farmer or a farmer group to sell their entire harvest to just one buyer. That's not resilient, that's risky business. That's not a good idea. But if you're only selling a fraction of your harvest at a living income price, at a price that enables a living income, then you're never going to get out of poverty. There should be a level playing field amongst consumer brands to lift farmers out of poverty so that they can actually do the investments in their farm that chocolate companies say they need to, because they're being encouraged to compete, to invest in their families, in their farms, in their children's education, but without resources, they cannot do that. So companies that realize this connection, this empathy, this responsibility can have the opportunity to amplify their positive impact on the ground through collaboration. If they're being transparent about it, then consumers will know which chocolate brands to award with their chocolate buying cents. To be clear, chocolate companies should compete fiercely on chocolate, on delicious chocolate, but they should not compete on cocoa. There should be no competition on child labor, on deforestation, or on poverty. Consumers should award the chocolate brands that make protecting farmers and forests their top priority, and not a unique selling point, but something that is an absolute baseline. Because and it's not a race that we should be competing with each other, it's something that we should be doing together so we can get to where we're going faster. And as for me, I would like to continue having those moments on the couch with Oma. And I would like you to join me to work towards a world where every single chocolate bite is luxurious and rewarding, both for my family and for your families and for cocoa growing families. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now you know why our role is to inspire you to act. So I'm going to be a bit more considerate next time I'm eating chocolate. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are going to do the same as well. Guys, we've had 4 amazing speakers, and I think, we've had people thoughts, and there you go, they agree too. And I know that we have a lot to think about right now, so I'm going to give you guys a break, but not just any type of break, right? It's my favorite sports right now, music. So we're going to go to the one and only Lino Vishnudat, and he's accompanied by the amazing Carlos Bourdon. We're going to hear some funky rock. So I might even join you guys as a backing dancer. Don't mind me. My mother didn't raise me too well, guys. But we'll see you very, very soon. Do enjoy this great music. This is from me to you guys. Don't thank me. Thank me later, okay? All right.
Play with my heart. Play with my heart now, baby. Chance you might break it. Then it'd be aching. We don't have no sound here. No sound. Yes. No? No monitoring. Nothing. Did I forget the button? It's there. Choo choo. I don't hear anything. Oh, we'll do it anyway. Sorry, folks, all over the world, having some technical problems. I can see everybody's leaving already. We have a song called, actually, Everybody's Leaving, so maybe we should start with that one. Hey, okay. Everything okay, Tom? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't play with my heart. Play with my heart now, baby. Chance you might break it, then it'd be aching. Play with my heart. Play with my heart now, baby, no. If you're mistaken, the mess you'll be making. I find no use for your excuse. I don't want us by the rules of your game. I don't want us to stop being friends. Let's stop this show and let us stop making sense before it gets out of hand. Play with my heart. Play with my heart now, baby. You'll be making. You speak hard you can. I want your love down to your soul, but don't forget it needs to keep in store. I want a love that is whole. Play with my heart, hey baby, chant you my breaking, that should be making. Play with my heart, play with my heart now, darling, no, chant you my breaking, my poor heart will be aching. If you don't want my love to say the word, I'll let you go your way. Yeah, baby. Don't play with my heart. Don't play with my heart. Hey, baby. Chant you my breaking. My poor heart will be aching, aching. Hey, baby. Play with my heart. No, 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 no. Chant you my breaking. That should be making. Play with my heart. Thank you very much. You three people are a beautiful audience. Thank you. All right. California? We've emptied bigger rooms than this. Well, we got to SFO, left a plane or drain of wine. We chased the sun and left the moon behind. We traveled back in time to an and out this place. Well, you know, it's little tourists too. They've got the best of remedies for when you're feeling blue. Down on Highway 1, all the way from north to south. I got my eyes wide open to see just what it's all about. I got my guitar on my back, suitcase in my hand. I'm rolling down the highway, not knowing where I land. But every day, no matter where I stay, I turn my head each way, 'cause I'm looking for a girl named California. I see you in my dreams. Are you gonna quit this crazy scene? Grass Valley, meditating at the falls. Nothing but the sound of water, of the birds and the bird call. The forest makes you hum, quiets down your mind. Being one with nature in another frame of time. Still each and every day, no matter what you say, I feel my soul drifting away while I'm looking for a girl named California. California. I see you in my dreams. was a painter, but he was a troubadour instead. Not only loving music, pouring out of his head. I know that I am blessed to see the light of day. But still I'm looking for a girl that's going by the name of California. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. We like to play some blues. Everybody's leaving, and I'm the one to stay behind. Everybody's leaving, and I'm the one to stay behind. Lord, won't you have mercy on my soul? Why don't you let me be the first in line? Everybody's going to that big concert way up in the sky. Everybody's going, yeah, everybody's going to that big concert way up in the sky. You work hard all your life, and then you just fall down and die. I hope those guitars in heaven. stay behind. I said everybody's leaving, and everybody's leaving. I don't know where they're going. And I'm the one to stay behind. Lord have mercy on my soul. Why won't you let me be the first in line? Thank you very much. I have to change guitars. Sorry. You're done? Oh, great. Wonderful. Goodbye, everybody.
Guys, let's make some noise for our amazing gentleman, Carlos, and of course, Lino here in the building, guys. Give them a round of applause. Now, gentlemen, we are not done with you. Yeah, we will be coming back. Oh, yeah, of course, you can't give us all that chocolate and you don't expect us to want some more, all right? Absolutely. Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to now make sure everybody is back. I want to give you guys a few minutes as well at home to gather your thoughts, be ready to come back into the mode. Remember, it's strength through unity. Once again, my name is Eddie Caddy. I'm the host for today's amazing event right here at TEDx Erasmus University in Rotterdam. Such a pleasure to be here. Our first half was incredible. We heard some great messages, of course, how to prepare ourselves with these current times, artificial intelligence, the cocoa industry, and of course, and Siri wants to get involved, of course. Siri also has something to say. Siri always has something to say. Okay, so making sure everybody's back. And of course, I remember Juan talking about artificial intelligence, and you know, it got me thinking about, do I really want to rely on technology in the future? I'm probably sick and tired of technology anyway, to be honest with you guys. I've given it my best. I want to go back to the time my grandparents were growing up. You know, how my granddad met my grandma. It was just conversation. It was just pure conversation. And they decided the first time they met, they decided there and then, we will meet again tomorrow at the same time, same spot. It was very simple. You know, there was no pre-assumptions about what do you look like, what's my type. You see your type, you spot your type, and you're happy with your type. Technology has taken us to a stage where it's too much pressure. I remember growing up, I reached a stage where I was getting a little bit, my parents considered it a bit too old to be alone. A bit too old to be alone, right? So, you know, we've all been there, or at least I have. And I remember my mum saying to me, Eddie, I'm really concerned every time you come and visit us, you always come alone. I mean, what is this? So, of course, I thought, no, Mum, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to connect with someone. I want to connect with someone who is as philosophical as me, someone who is as spiritual as me. So I went on Facebook. That's what I did. I went on Facebook. Don't judge me, guys. Don't judge me. We've all done it. And, of course, if you've never been on Facebook before, this is where you connect with friends. Okay? Social media has moved on so much, which is why I'm worried about artificial intelligence, because I'm not sure how far it would go. But I was on Facebook for 2 weeks, guys. I registered my name, put my pictures up, and I remember the first lady who added me, her name was Chocolate Caramel. Now, guys, you know how much I love chocolate, yeah? You know how much I love chocolate. Now, of course, for 2 weeks, I spoke to Chocolate Caramel. We just went back and forth. You know, the old message here and there, how was your day? You know, LOL, you know, the usual. And, of course, I didn't know what she looked like because she didn't put her picture up. I didn't mind because I'm all about personality. Yeah, just like my grandparents' days. You know, my granddad fell in love with my grandma through her personality, her loyalty. She came back the next day, the day after. You know, she was on time. So I was all about personality. But it got to a time where we needed to meet up. We did. And I said to Chocolate Caramel, my darling, I don't know what you look like. I need a picture so I can recognize you when we meet up. She said, well, darling, if you see me, you are going to die. I said, what? The confidence. She said, I look like Beyonce and Rihanna combined. I said, wow, that is Beyonce. That is fantastic. So I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't wait. The next day on Facebook, I logged back in. Guys, if you've never been on Facebook before, the picture is usually small. You've got to click on the picture to get the full pictures, right? Now, at this point, I would like to add, you should be proud of who you are. You should. You should. If you're tall, you're fat, you're skinny, you're green, you're yellow, you can't wear your trousers properly, it's okay. right? Be who you are. What I don't like is people misleading me. Once again, I think back to my granddad's times. You know, my grandma did not mislead him. He knew what he was working with. She promised me Beyonce and Rihanna. I was so excited. I clicked on that picture, and that's when the disappointment started. I don't know here in the Netherlands what's politically correct for the word ugly. So I'm going to use that word. And I use the word ugly because she misled me. I'm not saying I'm a bad person, but you can't tell me you're Beyonce and Rihanna, and then suddenly when I click on your picture, it is so bad. Her picture was so ugly, Facebook logged out automatically. It couldn't understand. I started getting viruses on my laptop. That's how bad it was. And I will never, from that day on, ever use Facebook again or social media. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure about artificial intelligence. Anyways, that's my sub story. Let's get back to the real stories while we're here. Okay, so I'm about to bring on the first speaker of this half. And this gentleman, we had a great conversation yesterday. And it was just, it was just such an enlightening conversation, of course. I call him the relationship fixer, connector. And you can tell by his voice, the pace of his voice, how he just, delivers his talk. You can tell he's there to connect people, and he's become a good friend. So here is a quote from him, how a cup of coffee makes people perform at their best. Please let's welcome CEO, founder, and international speaker of Exponentially Me, Eskin Deval. Make some noise.
Hi. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey. I want you to walk back with me in time, just a little bit. So just about a cup of coffee. Everything that you know about a cup of coffee, the stimulant, the caffeine, all that kind of stuff, just forget it. Just relax, let go of everything that you know. I'm going to take you to a different cup of coffee. So stepping back a little bit in time. I want you to imagine that you're in a part of Africa with thorn trees. It's dusty, it's cold, it's winter. You drive up the side of a mountain, and as you crest it, just to the left of you, you see these two humps. It's a hill, but it looks like 2 feet up in the air. The sun is lighting in the corner, just coming in. How do you then view your world? You see the trees, the grass, the dust. To the left of you is a lovely marula tree. You go and sit down underneath it. You put up your feet, and it sort of mirrors the little hill next to you. Your grandfather opens the thermos flask, pours a cup of coffee, and hands it to you. And in that warm cup of coffee, you can feel the warmth penetrating your cold, chilled fingers. And he asks, "How are you?" Not a general statement. It's just the two of you. It's a genuine, "How are you?" And that is the start of an amazing relationship. That was my first cup of coffee. Through my 20s and for the rest of my life with my grandfather, every time we talked, it was back to that first cup of coffee. It was taking that first cup of coffee and connecting. It was taking that first cup of coffee and remembering, "How are you?" And we talked about the smallest little things in life, the things that touch us that cost no money, the small acts of human kindness. I've just been instructed to pick up a different mic. All right. So in those small acts of human kindness, we find each other. And that's something my grandfather gave me. Now, what happened behind the scenes? There was this hormone active called oxytocin. And oxytocin is our relationship hormone. So when somebody gives you a cup of coffee, you get a hit of oxytocin. When you give someone a cup of coffee, you get a hit of oxytocin. And when you observe someone giving someone else a cup of coffee, you get a hit of oxytocin. So it doesn't just work for the people involved, it also works for the people observing it. And that's what's been happening in the last 20 years. We're starting to see more connections between different types of research. We can go from psychological theory, behavioral theory, observations, through to biology, through to hormones, and through to genes. Because of the advent of big data, we can finally start to understand how relationships work. It's not just behavior anymore, it is science. It's not just behavior anymore, it's a cup of coffee. It's not just a cup of coffee, it's oxytocin. I want to take you a little bit further back in time. I have this amazing woman in my life. I like to call her Mom. From the early ages, from before I went to school, she was there to teach me. By the time I went to school, I could read and write because she was there and she taught me. But even further back, to those first connections, to the first sort of, you know, like mummies play with kids, and the baby smiling up at her. That's where oxytocin makes its entrance. And that is where oxytocin starts connecting you. It does it to the extent that a mummy's neurological pathways forever changes to have that connection with that child, to reinforce it, to bond, to imprint. Some people refer to it jokingly as mummy brain. Now, for the men that tend to say that, I've got a surprise for you. Recent research have shown that it is not mummy brain, it's parent brain. Some gay dads were studied, and it showed that the primary caregiver also got that hit of oxytocin, those neurological changes, and forever became a parent. Forever became somebody that could connect and could understand. Forever became somebody that could know what you need, could see it and help you. What I want to do now is I want to take a step a little bit further into the future. I want us to go to 2008. I was working for a software development company, and we had a rather large customer. It served about 12 million people, and it had a call center with thousands of people working in there. In the middle of the financial crisis, I was asked, would you become the company's first account manager? And would you take over this large customer? Not only this, they're responsible for more than 50% of the revenue. Can you imagine the pressure? How many jobs are now hanging in the balance when I make a mistake? But you must remember, this is in the middle of the financial crisis. Everything you do feels like it's immense. Every problem is exaggerated. As a software development company, creativity is your lifeblood, and that seems to not be happening. Testers are testing software, coming back with reports saying there's errors, and people are taking their heads off as if they're the enemy. What's going on here? Well, what's going on is something different. What's going on is a drug called cortisol. And cortisol has a bit of a problem. It affects you negatively. Not just negatively, it brings a few things down, namely your ability to perform. Every time that your executive functions are engaged, every time that you're trying to think clearly, every time that you're trying to be your best self, cortisol hits you. so I can't do this today. Drip, drip, drip. What does cortisol do? Make you ready for flight or flight. The tester comes in with a report. Something's wrong. Drip, drip, drip. Ready, ready, ready. Ready for what? The customer calls, screams and shuts down the phone. Drip, drip, drip. Ready, ready, ready. Why? Constant building, constant tension, constant stress, constant drip, drip, drip. Are you ready? So how do we combat this? How do we, in a time of strife, a time of change, a time of problems, find our true selves? Find our ability to connect and find our ability to perform. At work, these are probably the most important. Our ability to start a task, our ability to keep control of our emotions, our ability to be creative, our ability to think out of the box, our ability to perform a planning, to orchestrate, to organize ourselves, and our ability to prioritize. And yet, how often do we see those things failing? How often do we see those things not present in a company, not present in a team, not present to people around us? So when we see this, we need to know there's something drip, drip, dripping, asking us to be ready, ready, ready. And we need to find a way to counter it. And I want to introduce you to cortisol's biggest enemy, oxytocin. So all we need is a cup of coffee. All we need is to say, here's a cup of coffee, how are you? All we need to do is connect, be in the moment. You don't have to go biddy 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 boo boo, but be there in the moment and be there. So ladies and gentlemen, people around the world, I want to ask you tonight, commit with me. Commit to giving a cup of coffee. Commit to receiving a cup of coffee. Commit to asking for a cup of coffee. And commit to let it shine and let other people see those cups of coffee and inspire them to also give you those cups of coffee, to give those cups of coffee to others, to pass it along. And I want to invite you, if you want to come with me, put a hand on someone's shoulder, be there for them, and I want you to grab a cup of coffee, give me one, grab a cup of coffee, give someone else one. And if you really want to, stay for a second cup, because that's how friendships are forged. Thank you.
Oh, man. Excellent. I would love to put my hand on your shoulder, but you know social distancing. It's just ruining everything. A cup of coffee. Nobody should ask me why I now drink 4 cups of coffee a day. You got to speak to my man Exton. He has ruined me, for sure. Okay, guys, are we still here? The energy's still up, guys? Let the people at home know you're still here. Make some noise. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Yeah. Yeah, don't think I'm alone here, guys. We're having a good time. Yes, we are. Okay, so the best defense is a good defense. Rethinking healthcare through the lens of eating. So we've spoken about chocolate. Now we're having a cup of coffee. And I want to know what I need to eat and how I should eat. Please put your hands together for the Director, Netherlands Nutrition Center, Chair, European Public Health Nutrition Alliance, the one and only, Herda Fjonekes.
Hi, great to be here. Let me start with sharing a little story with you. When I was a child, my mother used to bake an apple pie on Saturday. And she bought nice ingredients, crispy apples, raisins, and she did cinnamon in it. And I really loved it. My task was greasing the baking tin. And she put the apple pie in the oven, and soon the nice aroma was coming out of it. I was really looking forward to tasting it, the crispy crust and the juicy apples. Expectations were high. And when it was finally coming out of the oven, it was flat, totally flat. And this ritual repeated itself every week, and every time with the same result, flat. So I was like, how is this possible? And I then started to experiment a bit myself with the recipe, changed it a little bit, and eventually worked out how to bake a perfect apple pie. And I think that's how it started, my interest in food and the science behind it. Later on, I started studying nutrition and health because I was really, really impressed by the impact of food on our health, and I still am. And gradually, I got more interested by the food choices behind it. Why are we eating what we eat? And so I studied behavioral sciences in nutrition, and it's really, really, really intriguing. And so the question is really, can healthy food be a temptation? I mean, we're surrounded by all this unhealthy foods around us. And of course, healthy food can be a temptation. Think of crispy stir-fried vegetables, and think of freshly baked bread straight coming from the oven. Yeah, it can be. And in the world that I'd like to live in, the healthy choice is easy everywhere. Tasty, healthy food everywhere. That's my dream. But the real world isn't like this. At the moment, there are many temptations all around us. We really live on a food temptation island. And on this food temptation island, 1 out of 2 people have overweight. And many people have diseases related to what they eat. So, those diseases, like diabetes, like high blood pressure, are really, really affecting the quality of our lives. And also, they're very costly for society in the end. And COVID really affects you more when you have an unhealthy weight. So, I think we can all agree, healthy eating is urgent, more urgent than ever. So, let's start doing it, right? But what's healthy eating? To me as a nutrition scientist, healthy eating is food that's providing my nutritional needs, but also that's better for the earth, so healthy and sustainable. And I'm not the only one that's wanting to eat healthier. Many people would like to eat a bit healthier. Many people need to eat a bit healthier, and many people can eat a bit healthier. So, let's do it. Let's just start doing it. Because you all know what healthy eating is. I mean, healthy eating is in basic food, nutritious food, drinking lots of water, fruit and vegetables. You all know that. So, why is it then so difficult to make these healthy choices? Well, the thing is, we're tempted by unhealthy food in many places. We live on a food temptation island. And on that food temptation island, the unhealthy choice is everywhere, and the healthy choice is more difficult to find. So, really, we're tempted by it. It's like the house of Hansel and Gretel. It's like living in a candy store. So, why are we so tempted by it? Well, let's go back a long time ago, when our brain and body was designed. In that time, scarcity was really the rule. We didn't know when the next time was when you could eat again. And in that time, your brain says, when you saw something nutritious, something calorie-rich, eat it now. So that's really why we like sugary food and fatty food. We're sort of programmed to it. All right, so we like it. And there are 3 more reasons why we keep eating it. The first is portions. Portion sizes have increased dramatically in the past decades. What used to be a large soft drink is now labeled as small. And plates are also getting bigger and bigger. The second reason why we keep eating it is price. Unhealthy food is cheap, or at least it looks cheap. For a few euros, you can have a snack, a fried snack, and it fills your stomach, but it doesn't really nourish your body. And if I want to buy 1 bag of crisps, and I only want to buy 1 bag, then I get the second one for free. Thirdly, unhealthy food is advertised a lot. Really, really a lot. And healthy food is not. So we hear it all the time. We hear it on radio, TV, online, and it creeps into our minds and into the minds of our children. So mind you, for every million that the government is spending on healthy eating, on promoting healthy eating, companies spend a staggering 30 million to promote unhealthy food. Enormous. So, summing up, we like it, comes in big portions, supposedly cheap, and advertised heavily. That's why we are really, really tempted to eat unhealthy. So, let's move on. Let's have a closer look at Food Temptation Island. Because mind you, it's not a far away remote island that you could avoid should you want to. No, it's everywhere. Cities are quickly turning into food temptation paradises, everywhere. In most cities, it's more difficult to buy an apple than to buy a hamburger. Yeah, so temptations are everywhere. And I hear you say, yeah, okay, there can be temptations, but I'm actually the one in charge of what I eat. And sure, you're in the end the one who puts food into your mouth. However, eating is not entirely a rational thing. Eating behavior is for a part automatic behavior. And because do you think every morning, what shall I have for breakfast? Or do I put sugar in my tea? No, you don't think that. A lot of these decisions, those daily decisions, are made automatically. And we do that every day. So, what do you think? Which percentage of decisions you make on a day are made automatically? 10, 20, maybe 50%? It's 90%. 90% of daily decisions are made automatically. You do it without thinking. That's a lot. That's really a lot. Yeah. And then combined with the food environment that's really, really tempting, and our brain that's sort of stuck in the past, we've got a mismatch. So the only really thing we can do is change the world around us so that the healthy choice is easy everywhere. That's what we have to do. So how do we do that? How do we go about it? The trick really is to make healthy eating a habit, to build it slowly into that 90% of your brain that is making the automatic decisions. That's really how it works. And science has shown it's best to do that step by step. Don't throw away all your unhealthy habits in one go. No, just try one by one, see what works for you. Maybe add some vegetables to your lunch, or maybe replace a sweet drink by water. Just try, see what works, and if it works, repeat, 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 so that it ends up in that automatic behavior. And then we're there, then it's a habit. I'm sure you have many more ideas how you could do that. And let me give you one of mine. Because when I was a kid, I always got something like fruit when I was running off to school at the swimming pool, and I still do that. So now I have little snack tomatoes and an apple, and it works perfectly for me. It's part of that 90%. whenever I want to snack something, it automatically is a healthy choice. Brilliant. No thinking required. So how do we make these habits? Let's start at home. I mean, the key things that you could do, if I can give you a few tips, is first of all to make a shopping list. And on a shopping list, you put only healthy foods. Foods that you, your family, and your friends like. Secondly, make sure it's put very attractively on the table, whatever, like make a fruit basket. And thirdly, the unhealthy food, store it away. I mean, don't tempt yourself all the time. All right, so that's about habits. Let's continue, yeah. So, building habits, building that in the new eating behavior in our 90% behavior is really where we want to go. And this is a nice example of a school canteen where they changed the whole assortment, and most of the foods that they sell now are healthy. And the sheer presence of all that healthy food simply pushes the pupils towards the healthier choices. And it works nicely. And we really should do that everywhere. I mean, not just in schools. And I think we can all be part of that. We can all contribute to that. So you can do something. And I hear you say, well, I can do something, sure. I just heard you. It's a big problem. We all need to help. Sure, but isn't this something for, say, governments or supermarkets or food producers to solve? I mean, you just told me that 90% of my behavior is done automatically and pushed by the temptations around me. So, I mean, it shouldn't be just my responsibility, right? And you're right. Governments can take action. Central and local governments are experimenting with this. So they see what's working best for their people. But all change, all real change is really starting with people that are brave enough to take the first step, that experiment with it and say, hey, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to give you a few examples. Like the restaurant, the family-owned restaurant, that decided they double the amount of veggies on the plate while reducing the meat. And I'm thinking of the takeaway restaurant that put the top picks from their list. They made it healthy choices because they know many people pick something from what they see first. And I really like the supermarket that decided to do only promotions on healthy food. And I'm also really impressed by a mayor of a city that decided that in his city, the number of unhealthy food outlets is finished. There's a max on it. And meanwhile, he's helping the others to improve their offering. And he understands, like many mayors, that it's not just his city that's quickly turning into a food temptation island. I mean, everywhere around, the same is happening. So they're now working together in the Global Healthy Cities Network. So, what can you do? Of course, you can also do something. Be part of this. What you can do is you can surprise your friends, your family, with healthy temptations. Like this girl, Claire. She's a student, and she loves to party, but she's fed up with drinking alcohol all the time, at all occasions. So she surprised her friends with an exotic mocktail party. And I'm thinking of my neighbors who have 2 little boys. And they had a birthday party, and their boys were playing fruit memory with real fruit under cups. And when they had a match, like strawberries, plums, or berries, they could eat it. And I'm thinking of John, the firefighter, and his family. When they barbecue, they put loads of veggies on it, in addition to the meat. All of them are making the difference. And now it's our turn. we can make the difference as well. We can help making healthy choices easy everywhere. Because the food environment is not a thing. The food environment consists of people, people like us, people who prepare food, people that sell food, serve food, people that eat food. So we are the food environment, so we can make it better. So I'd like to ask you to all take one conscious decision today to make the healthy choice easier for yourself and for the people around you. So make that a habit, stick that in that 90% of automatic behavior. And if we all do that, it will make a huge difference. So let's do it. Let's make the healthy choice the easy choice. Thank you.
Ada, don't forget your bag unless you really want me to, maybe it's a hint for me. I feel like this is a hint. Do you want to take, there's some nice apples in there. It comes with, it does, he thinks I'm joking. It comes with apples, it comes with fruits. There's a vice. See, this is what I wish I had more friends like Herda. You know, I don't have any friends of mine who carries bags around with apples and pears and tomatoes in there. It just makes no sense. It's impossible. So we've gone from talking about, you know, chocolate, you know, with Yoka, she broke it down, and, you know, how we should enjoy chocolate. And that's made me look forward to eating chocolates, you know, uncontrollably, as per usual. But then I've got Eskin who's come to me and said, you know what, indulge in some cups of coffees. And I thought, yeah, the way he's broken it down is just so romantic and so beautiful. I'm going to be addicted. Here I am drinking 4 cups of coffees a day. And then you've got a friend like her who turns around and says, Eddie, all right, put it down, all right, here's an avocado. I mean, what am I supposed to do? And I can't have all 3 of them as my friends. There's conflict. There's conflict. Maybe I need to separate them throughout the year. But anyway, so here is another friend. This is more on animals. It's good, right? So here's this quote. How putting animals on trial puts humanity on trial. This is the former course director at Columbia University. He is definitely ready, guys. Let's welcome him like the rock star that he is, right? Make some noise for the one and only, Mr. Simon Pozak.
So what does it mean to be human, anyway? After a decade as a humanities researcher, I thought I knew the answer to that question. But then I encountered some stories that made me really start to wonder. The heroes of these stories aren't humans like you and me, though. They're animals. So maybe we could call them fables. Of course, fables have morals, little lessons you learn that help you be a better. I'm not sure if I learned something from these fables, though. It's more like I unlearned something. I unlearned what it meant to be human. So here are my fables for a less human, more lively world. This is a shark. Yes, in fact, it is a shark. I'm going to switch to the other mic. Well, great. Is this better? Excellent. This is a shark. In 2011, a great white shark in Australia attacked and killed a spearfisher. The government ordered police to track down and kill any shark they could find, without even trying to track down the guilty shark. This is often the case when wild animals attack. We've killed mountain lions, mama grizzly bears, endangered alligators, and we do the same with domestic animals like dogs who turn on their owners. Justice, when it comes for animals, is swift, deadly, and administered without a trial. Moral. The legal system is for humans, not animals. This is a pig. One day in the 1300s, a pig in a medieval village ate a communion wafer. The pig was executed for blasphemy. But before that happened, the pig was given a full criminal trial, complete with a judge, a defense attorney, everything. In medieval courts, confessions were only accepted if they were administered under torture. They thought that if you were in pain, you wouldn't be able to lie. So the pig was put on the rack, tortured, and had his confession used against him in court. They even hired a professional human executioner to perform a professional human execution on the pig. But this wasn't the only pig that was put on trial. We were trying pigs all the way up into the 1800s. We tried other domestic animals as well, like oxen and horses. We even tried flocks of weevils that destroyed crops or rats that ate stored grain. I stumbled upon this history of animal trials when I was researching the history of pets, and I was pretty surprised. Were these people crazy? Or was the whole thing some sort of barbaric excuse used to justify their desire to take revenge on these bad animals? I didn't know, but I was left with this moral. The legal system once was for humans and animals. This is a donkey. As I worked my way through this extensive archive of animal trials, one case really stood out to me. In 1750, a man and a donkey were put on trial as co-defendants in a case of bestiality. The donkey's lawyers called character witnesses, who described her as honest and testified to her being well-behaved. The judge believed them and concluded that the donkey must have been forced to participate in the act against her will. The donkey was acquitted. The man executed. So that's when I really started thinking. After all, this donkey received a perfectly fair trial, one that hinged on the court's belief that her character determined her actions. The judge must have thought of her as just as capable of free will, knowing right from wrong, and making moral choices as a human would have been. Otherwise, he just would have executed her the same way we do now. This wasn't barbarism. This was some other way of seeing animals, not as the equals of humans, but not as our opposites either. Moral. Something has changed in the way we think about the relationship between humans and animals. This is a chicken, and this is a dog. Once upon a time, in medieval villages, we lived close up to our animals. We were in the same room as them, close enough to see those flashes of character traits we now think of as uniquely human. Things like personality, emotion, memory, intelligence, even consciousness. But then industrialization moved humans out of villages and into cities. At this increased distance from animals, we started to see them as food, something to consume for our physical needs, or as pets, something to consume for our emotional needs. In the first case, they became commodities, interchangeable raw materials to exploit at will. In the second, fetishes, impossibly valuable treasures. But in both cases, animals became things. Modernization took humans out of the world. It put us at a distance and allowed us to operate on it objectively through the lens of a rifle or the sight of a camera, or even, let's say, the sight of a camera or the lens of a rifle, because I'm never going to get that line correct. But from this remove, we're able to view ourselves as masters of the world, capable of dominating it at will. That position allows us to imagine that we humans have some special innate trait that separates us from the things around us. And whenever we want to prove it, we can simply objectify the world again. Making animals into things was just one part of a larger process of making us into humans. Moral. There's something inhumane in this process of becoming human. This is an emu. Australia once declared war on emus. They were rampaging through the outback, terrorizing farms and destroying crops. The army mobilized a whole battalion against them, but the emus easily outran jeeps and evaded machine gun fire. After wasting thousands of dollars on ammunition, the army was forced to retreat. The government then tried something different. They took that money and they gave it to the farmers who actually lived with the emus. The military had viewed the birds as things, targets in a shooting gallery. But the farmers knew the emus as something more, something capable of tactics and creativity. By empowering the farmers to deal with the emus, the government brought the problem quickly to a hold. And so this got me thinking about what are trials really for? I think that they're not about strife and conflict. I think that they're about community and togetherness. After all, if I sue you for having a dangerous open pit in your yard, the fact that I meet you in court means that I acknowledge us as both belonging to some sort of shared society. And the fact that we meet in court, not as opposites, but as something like opposed equals, gives us a space to work through our differences and reconstruct that society. So what happens when conflict arises with an enemy you don't recognize as equal? It's war. The Emu War, I think, demonstrates the problem of viewing animals as things. It prevents us from finding sophisticated solutions to animal problems. And animal problems are just going to get worse as populations move across the globe, as climates change, and as technology brings us in more and more rapid contact with the animals in our world. Those problems are going to get more and more complex. Moral: the world is becoming an impossibly complicated place, and thinking of animals as things prevents us of finding creative ways of dealing with that. This is a monkey. Well, it's a macaque, but don't worry about that. And unlike the other pictures I've shown you, this guy actually took this picture himself. A photographer passed his digital camera to him, and the monkey took this selfie and triggered waves of lawsuits. First, after the image went viral on the internet, the photographer found that he didn't have any copyright control over the image. After all, if only humans can think, then only humans have the right to intellectual property. So far, so bad. The same humans are the only subjects of justice. But things do get worse. After the photographer published the image, which he believed to be in the public domain, in a book, he was sued by the monkey. The case was settled out of court, but the photographer ended up having to cede part of the proceeds from the book, and thus part of the authorship over the image, to the monkey. Maybe animal trials are coming back. A few years ago in Kazakhstan, a bear was let out of jail on parole after serving a lengthy sentence for mauling some people. But I think these new animal trials highlight the innate flexibility and capacity for adaptation that's at the heart of our legal system. After all, that's why we allow appeals and why we try criminals rather than sentencing them de facto. Case law is constantly redefining the boundaries of the law, something we imagine as fixed and permanent as that line separating humans from animals. Moral: our systems were set up to challenge boundaries, not to maintain them. And that's why we can use them to imagine more just worlds. This is a toaster. So just a thing, no animal, right? Okay. Imagine waking up in the smart home of tomorrow. You go downstairs to the kitchen to discover that your toaster has talked to your refrigerator and they've changed the brand of frozen waffles they order for you because they're concerned about your health. You'll be surrounded by devices, everything from thermostats to light switches, really everything, that are constantly adapting their behavior in response to you and the other devices in your house. Won't you start to notice flashes of personality, emotion, even defiance in these things? That smart home of tomorrow looks a lot to me like the medieval village house of the past, where humans are living in the same room as oxen and pigs. Technology is bringing the world back to life. And just as it's enabling humans to do more and more spectacular things, it's enabling new forms of animal intelligence and creativity as well. We just saw a monkey win a copyright settlement just by learning how to use a digital camera. But octopuses in aquariums are developing spectacular new problem-solving techniques just through being exposed to ubiquitous everyday technologies. As this technological growth accelerates, will we find it increasingly complicated and difficult to tell the difference between humans, animals, and things? Because that's really what's on trial here. Our conviction that humans are human, and animals are animals, and things are things. Moral: we need to unlearn this lesson quickly. The world is becoming more complex, more interconnected, and more bizarre by the day, and our old preconceptions won't help us deal with that. We need to dream up new ways of being human that don't rely on objectifying the world around us. And only then can we start to imagine new ways of living on this busy, constantly evolving planet. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir. One more time, guys, for the one-on-one assignment. Imagine being so good looking that your selfie qualifies for a lawsuit. I mean, this is everybody's dream, isn't it? Imagine that. That was once again a great conversation. I say a conversation because I know you're thinking about it and you're going to be speaking to your friends about it. You're going to phone your mum and dad and discuss some of these things. And this is what the TEDx talks are all about. If you're just joining us, you know, it happens sometimes. My name is Eddie Caddy. We have reached the final speaker of what's been an amazing, amazing evening here in Rotterdam. TEDx Erasmus University. Strength through unity has been the theme for today, and I feel very united with my new family, guys. Make some noise so they know you're here, guys. Make some noise in the building. Yeah? It's been absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I am now not looking forward to my flight back to the UK, and of course, you know, we're still going to be here for a little while because after this fantastic speaker, we still have our band. Right? So I spent about 15 to 20 minutes discussing the history of Dutch football with this next person, specifically talking about one of Holland's best players, Dennis Bergkamp. It was very insightful. We had a great time. But I know he's not going to be talking about that right now. Of course, this is the head of sales for Too Good To Go. Waste not, love food, the road to eliminating food waste. Please put your hands together for the phenomenal Gijs van Schut in the building.
Thank you. Imagine you're coming home after an amazing day and you're full of positive energy. And to your surprise, your partner has cooked your favorite meal. It looks amazing and you can see all the incredible food products used for this fantastic meal. And you can also see all the love and energy that has gone into creating it, as well as the love and energy that the planet has given it. So you sit at the table and you wait until the dinner's being served. And there it comes. And before you are about to start, you take your plates and you actually walk back to the kitchen. You open the bin and you throw away 1/3 of your food. You go back to the table, you sit down again and you look into the eyes at the other side. And they're filled with disbelief. Think about it. Could you ever imagine yourself doing this? Of course you couldn't, but we do it. We do it every day. We waste 1/3 of our food every day. My professional career has taken me into various commercial roles in the food industry, always trying to sell as much food as I could. And at a certain point in time, I felt there's something wrong. And my background triggered curiosity for the role food has in the exploitation of this planet. And it's since then that I discovered we're wasting 1/3 of our food, but also that we can do something about it. With just 4 words, you can have an incredible impact and become part of this movement against food waste. So food waste, what is it? A lot of investigation has been done by a wide variety of organizations, like United Nations, consultancy firms like BCG, as well as NGOs and universities. So we know a lot. For example, every second we're wasting 51 tons of food. It doesn't only sound shocking, it actually is, when you bring it back to things we know and understand. So, when you would take a walk in nature and you would pass a field with cows eating grass or laying and digesting it, or in the same walk you would enter a farm and you would see some chickens running around on their small legs, could you imagine yourself throwing away these animals? with the food we waste, we throw away 12 billion animals a year. 12 billion living creatures born to be wasted. Or suppose China would be one big agricultural field, and everywhere you would go and travel, you would see fields of wheat, vegetables, fruit gardens, and thousands of people working the fields day in, day out. With the food we waste, we would throw away the entire crop of the land of China every year. So throwing away 1/3 of our food really means something. And I often wondered why this happens. Why do we throw away food? Why do restaurants serve our plates too full? Or why do we still buy more food when we already have a full fridge? We went from pieces of food we knew, how they were grown, who grew them, and where they were coming from, to anonymous food products we buy in a supermarket chain. It became a commodity, interchangeable with anything else, just depending on our latest desire. We've stopped to see the beauty of food, from the smallest grape to the largest animal, and how incredible it is, and how it grows from virtually nothing to what it becomes, and all the magic happening in between. So next time you open your fridge, try to imagine where the food is coming from, how it was grown, and how incredible it is that it ended up in your fridge. Would you then still throw away your food? Did you know that throwing away food has actually an impact on the well-being of our planet? Because if you look at the food waste, the greenhouse gases associated with food waste, and if the greenhouse gases from food production to wasting it would be a country, it would be the 3rd emitter in the world after China and the US. Or if you would look at the water we use for food, for the water for the animals, to the irrigation of our crop, with the food we waste, we throw away the equivalent of 100 million Olympic pools a year. And of course, you know, for food production, land is needed. And 50% of the habitable land in the world is used for food production. And our continued demand for more means we need more land for food production. And as a consequence, forests are suffering. In fact, food production is responsible for 80% of deforestation in tropical and subtropical countries. So stop wasting food would actually make our planet a better place. However, it's a very complex issue as well, and it's very easy to look at others to do something about it. But I think we should do something about it ourselves. Why? Because food waste is different. Food waste is different. If you look at where most of our food is coming from, farms, or if you look at places where we buy all our food, a restaurant, a supermarket, or a bakery, you could imagine that not all food is made into consumption. It's not good, it needs to be solved, and it will be solved. However, these places are not the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is us. It's you. Because it's in our homes that over 52% of all the food that's being wasted is thrown away. So it's a big challenge, and you are in the driver's seat. And you could still think, well, why would I do something about it? Well, because there's a nice thing about not wasting food anymore. You all know that greenhouse gases have been rising basically since the Industrial Revolution. And the last 3 decades, they've risen 50%. And stop wasting food is the single biggest existing solution for reaching the point in time that greenhouse gases stop climbing and start to decline. So when we are able to do that, we can have more impact than stop driving your car or building windmills. And it's so easy. It just needs you. It needs you to only do one thing. You need to allow a little mantra into your life. It will help you to remember how beautiful food is. And that food is here to be eaten, not to be wasted. So, next time you think about food, or actually every time you think about food as of now, remember this. First, finish the fridge. It's a very simple four-word saying that just needs some repeating to remember. So, next time you're having your breakfast, first finish the fridge. Or when you are cooking your dinner, you first finish the fridge. And when you plan to go to a supermarket, you first finish the fridge. The most impactful action you can make to make this planet a better place is to first finish the fridge. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Wow. First, finish the fridge. Wow. That's really interesting, because I'm not sure what to do in my life now. I know how you feel, guys. I felt like I came here and I had it all worked out. That I've met these superhumans who have now given me life advice. But someone's saying, really think about chocolate and think about the industry behind it. But I'm just falling more and more in love with chocolate. Then somebody else is telling me, do not neglect a cup of coffee. And I'm like, that's fantastic. But now I've been told to first think about the fridge before I take a cup of coffee. This. My life is just, I don't know. I don't know whether I've been upgraded or I've got a lot more food for thought to take home. But it's been absolutely amazing. I think our speakers, every single one of them, deserve a big round of applause. Absolutely. And you can do the same at home, for sure. I would personally like to ask you guys, and especially you guys at home as well, where you are right now, even though I can't hear you, to give a big round of applause of these amazing organizers who have put together this event during these crazy times. I, for one, have seen the work behind the scenes, and these guys they've risked themselves, because you know the times we're going through. So for them to put this together during this time goes to show how much they care about you at home and the world itself as well. My name is Eddie Caddy. I've enjoyed being your host for today, but we're not done. We are not done. Back to the phenomenal Lino Vishnudat and the one and only Carlos Boudon, who are going to see us out with amazing music, guys. Over to you. Thank you for having us. Hope you stay safe. Remember, 2 meters apart, 1.5 meters. All right? I'm being nice. Guys, take it away. Bye-bye.
Dirty song. I'm gonna fill her up, keep her going straight all through the night. I'm gonna work her up until I'm doing her with all of my might. I'm gonna move her up, and she'll be going morning all night. I'm gonna work her up. Don't want no other woman by my side. My baby's so hungry, she make me work like a football team. My baby's so hungry, she make me sweat till I'm blown out steam. Yeah, my baby's so hungry, even awake, she's giving me wet dreams, giving me wet dreams, wet dreams. I can sleep at night. Wet dreams wanna picks me up. She wants to play whatever game at all time. She's gonna pick me up. She'll have me screaming like I'm out of my mind. Oh yeah, she sizes me up. Her touch and shivers right down in my spine. I'm gonna wrap her up. I'm gonna wrap her up in love so fine. My baby's so hungry, she make me work like a football team. My baby's so hungry, she make me sweat till I'm blown out steam. Yeah. Oh, my baby's so hungry, even awake she's giving me wet dreams, giving me wet dreams, wet dreams. I can sleep at night. Wet dreams, I wanna squeeze her tight. Wet dreams, she drive me mad. 'Cause since I'm mad this woman, baby, all my dreams are wet, wet dreams. Wet dreams. Wet dreams. Since I met this woman, baby, all my dreams are wet. Baby's so hungry, she make me work like a football team. My baby's so hungry, she make me sweat till I'm blown out steam. Yeah. Oh, my baby's so hungry, even awake she's giving me wet dreams, giving me wet dreams, wet dreams. I can sleep at night. Wet dreams, wanna squeeze her tight. Wet dreams, she drive me mad. This is a madness woman, baby. All my dreams are wet. Yeah, wet dreams. Have mercy, baby. This is a madness woman, baby. All my dreams are. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We would like to thank Tafa for inviting us when she saw us at the Jimi Hendrix Memorial. And we're doing something completely different. These are all original tunes. And I also like to say thanks to all the people working for TEDx. And I don't know where Ted is, but thank you, Ted. We're going to do a ballad. I said, Rachel, I love you. But you're like sunshine on a cloudy day. I said, Rachel, don't leave me. I hope that one day I will find a better way. It feels like something's holding me back. It feels like something's blocking the track. I don't want no more misery. I'm hoping for that day, sweet liberty. Ever wanna see you sad? I wanna give you all I never had. But I can buy you anything. All I got for you is a song to sing, Rachel. You're like sunshine on a cloudy day. I said, Rachel, I love you. I hope that one day I will find a better way. I Guess I like the sound of your name. And like a waters you could never be tamed. I find comfort in your smiling face. All I need is you, and everything is in place. Can't think of ever leaving you. I wanna build that place that's fit for two. No matter what the future brings, the only thing I got is a song to sing, Rachel. Well, you're like sunshine on a cloudy day. I said, Rachel, I love you. I hope that one day I will find better ways. Rachel, nobody ever made me feel this way. Rachel, am I right or am I going astray? And every night I wanna feel you close to me. And every day I wanna be here next to you. My life has changed so much the moment you stepped in. Baby, can't you see just what you did to me? Baby, can't you see you made my heart sing? Ooh. I said, Rachel, I love you. Well, you're like sunshine on a cloudy day. I said, Rachel, don't leave you. I hope that one day I will find better ways. Rachel, nobody ever made me feel this way. Rachel, am I right or am I going astray? Am I losing my way? Tell me what you gotta say, what you gotta say, what you gotta say, Rachel. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. We're through? All right. Thank you, Eddie.
Make some noise for the duo, man, the best duo in the world. Lino Vishnadat and the one and only Carlos Bourdon.
Thank you.
Something just...
Thank you very much.
Right, so trust me, guys, it was better that I'm holding this than drop it, for sure. Yeah, but this is a little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. It's been absolutely amazing. Please, one more time for our band. They were fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our speakers were amazing. Our organizers. I've certainly felt the good old Dutch hospitality. And I've always said, I was saying this to Gijs earlier, you know, you guys from the Netherlands are the most laid back guys in Europe, man. You're just laid back about everything. Just relax. I was watching Gijs getting ready for his talk. He was just so relaxed. And that's how I felt since I've been here. So thank you for having us. I hope you can join us next year. There will be a next year. Yeah, is that a promise? For sure? I'm sure. I promise it, guys. You can chase me. My name is Eddie Caddy. It's been fantastic. Join us next time. God bless you. Good night.
Yeah.